All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website, you've got it, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is William J. Hall. He was born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where the events of the world's most haunted house took place. He watched and heard the news coverage of the Lindley Street haunting on TV when he was just 10 years old. Now, after 25 years as a professional magician and a member of the Society of American Magicians Psychic Investigation Committee, our guest knows how to recognize trickery and how to create and recognize illusions. And he knows from personal experience that poltergeists exist. My guest this hour, once again, is the author, Bill Hall, of The World's Most Haunted House, and his website is www.worldsmosthauntedhouse.com. And Bill, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure. Tell me, Bill, what was it about this case that prompted you to write The World's Most Haunted House?
It primarily was due to, first there was the what intrigued me, which is the pure amount of witnesses involved in this case, the types and the amounts. You know, police officers, firefighters, reporters, priests, neighbors, and onlookers, and in great number. So that was the first part. The second part was the wonderful opportunity of accessing the never-before-released interviews from an investigation that was done privately after this thing was announced a hoax after a few days to get rid of the crowds. And those tapes, some 30 hours of interviews, was made available to me, and that really gave the information necessary to tell the story. And of course, that's when I realized this really was a story that needed to be shared. So
I gathered from what you're saying, even though it was tagged as a hoax, it was not indeed a hoax?
No, not at all. No, in fact, the police actually mandated that their officers participate in the investigations, interviews, after it was deemed a hoax, as well as the police also continued to provide protection for the family inside of the house also. So they knew it wasn't a hoax by any means, but the crowd was just getting, there's thousands of people outside the house. I mean, they even tried to burn it down. It's just a crazy, as crowds will get, as you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes worse than what was going on in the house, and that was bad enough. So the family had to deal with the inside and the outside of the house.
Now, after so many years, why investigate the Lindley Street story now?
Well, it's funny. It just came up on Facebook one day on one of the community pages, and that's what reminded me of it. I was just having coffee one morning, messing around on Facebook. And that's when I saw the post. And then from there, it occurred to me I never really looked into it. And that's when I went on and started looking at the newspaper articles. And from there, it really got my attention, because I had forgotten how many witnesses and the types of witnesses that were involved in the case.
You're a professional magician. You sit on a committee that actually investigates and tries to debunk claims of the paranormal. Did your fellow magicians help you in this case, or was this a solo effort by you?
This was a solo effort by myself. I am surprised that, because, I was a little worried about that. How would I look to this, all the many magicians that I know? And they were actually quite supportive. I was amazed to see how open-minded they were, given what we normally think of when we think of a magician. We think of a skeptic, an unbeliever. Right. Although Houdini was very much open-minded, definitely demanded proof, rightfully so, but was always open to that possibility and actively sought it out. So I was quite surprised and very happy that people that I knew really embraced it and instead said, well, if Bill says this thing's true, I want to look into it. I want to read the proof. I want to see it because, we know he's going to give this higher level of scrutiny to it.
Bill, stand by. You and I have to take our first commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Exonation Bill Hall is our special guest. He's the author of The World's Most Haunted House, www.worldsmosthauntedhouse.com. And Bill Hall and I will be back on the other side of this 2-minute break. Don't go away. Bill Hall is my guest, Exonation. He's the author of The World's Most Haunted House, www.worldsmosthauntedhouse.com. Bill, take us back to that strange November back in 1974.
Well, what happened with the family, and it was a tiny little house right in the middle of the city, 738 square feet, very, very small house right near the hospital. Didn't even look like qualified to be a haunted house. And it was a mother and father, Laura and Jerry, and they were middle-aged, and they had an adopted daughter, Marcia, who was 10. And in 1971, they began hearing banging sounds on the inside and outsides of the wall, and these sounds would actually follow the mother and daughter around the house. And these was on and off every November. So 1971, 72, 73, and 74. And in 72, they called the police and was trying to get somebody to figure out what the sounds were. They didn't think they were supernatural at all. They just didn't even cross their mind. They just wanted the stupid sounds to stop.
Sure.
But it really culminated in 74 when they started hearing those sounds again. And they came home from a trip from New York and found a TV down in Marcy's room, the little girl.
The TV down. What do you?
And from there, just things started going wild with table in the kitchen flipping and the TV falling over and breaking the mother's toe and dishes flying and these heavy recliners opening and closing by themselves. So it really got crazy for them. And things settled down until the next morning, and then it just got much worse. And that's when it expanded to the police and firemen and priests, etc.
How did the media get a hold of the story? What was so special about it?
It was a combination of the witnesses. So as the police showed up, of course, as people see police cars, and there was 12 firemen that showed up to the house. There was about 16 police officers. So there was a whole bunch of these people going in and out of the house. And as this was happening and people were seeing their expressions, and naturally with that many people, eventually the word starts spreading out and people start gathering and neighbors talking.
Right.
And then it just expanded from there until finally, of course, the press got hold of it, and then it finally went Associated Press, and that's when it went around the world. But
so tell me, were there any photos taken of any of the paranormal activity?
Not of the activity, no. There were reporters in there that had cameras that witness phenomena, but they really were overtaken in the moment because the reporters often, when they went in there, before they went in there, they had one mindset: this is going to be fun. I'm going to this haunted house. This will be silly. And then when they got in, they realized this was the real thing, and it was serious, and the family was suffering. And I talked to John Sopko, for example, who was with the Bridgeport newspaper at the time, and he saw dishes fly in the kitchen. And I asked him, "Did you have a camera and stuff?" He said, "Oh yeah, right around me." He said, "Well, you saw this happen?" And I said, "I couldn't even move. I didn't pick up a camera or anything." And you heard that from the press, that and radio people, radio personalities went in there with their microphones and whatnot, and ended up never taking the microphones out.
Don't you find that strange? As a member of the media and a former law enforcement officer myself, I find that rather strange that you've got all these cops, all these reporters, all these media guys, and nobody got a sound bite, nobody got a photo. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, sound bites. They did get interviews, and later on,
but nothing with the entities, nothing pertaining to the paranormal activity.
Not right. Well, when the reporter, there was that one incident when the reporter witnessed it. Other times, reporters either were not let into the house, or if they were, there may not have been something going on at that particular time. So. The only time the family really let the press in was when they knew a station because they watched it or they were fans of the particular thing going on, and their message was basically just to tell people we're not crazy, because this thing, of course, had gotten out to the public.
Yeah.
Other than that, the Warrens of the famous Conjuring, well, now famous because of the Conjuring, and more locally famous for years in my neck of the woods. They, I'm sure, wanted to set up cameras and whatnot, but the family wasn't the family wasn't concerned with proving phenomena. They were going through this and wanted it to stop, and they weren't interested in publicity or any of or making money on it.
Well, if they weren't interested in publicity, why would they let the media in?
They did on some selective moments, just to prove that they weren't crazy, because word was already out. So they already had crowds forming outside the house. And so there were a few times that they did. And they gave one final interview after it was announced a hoax, just to kind of clear the family name. And then they never spoke about it again for the rest of their lives. So,
was the church involved?
Yeah. When the police, when an off-duty officer and friend came over originally to help the family, he didn't know what to do when he saw phenomena, so he called for backup, and more police came. They didn't know what to do, so they called the firemen. Firemen came, didn't know what to do, and they ended up calling the department chaplain, and that's when a priest showed up. Also, the Warrens brought a priest with them also, who actually saw the entities. And this guy, Father Charbonneau, nobody really knew how he kept his standing in the as a priest, because he really talked openly about this everywhere he went. But so yes, they were involved to support the family mainly. There was an attempt to get an exorcism done, but this thing got so public that I'm sure the church didn't want to touch it at all.
How about, what do we know about the people, the residents of the house? Who were they? Where did they come from? What kind of jobs did they do? Was there any psychological buildup done on them?
Yes, there actually was psychological tests done on them by the investigators, but they were just good people, incredible integrity, salt of the earth people. Jerry was an altar boy and a scout leader, and he had no children. He was a maintenance man, just hardworking, salt of the earth kind of family. Laura was a stay-at-home housewife. They adopted Marcy. So the buildup involved they had a very young son, died age 6, had cerebral palsy, couldn't walk or talk or do anything himself.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got Marcy, they basically were parenting her in the same way. So she was, and they adopted her from your neck of the woods, Ontario, Canada. And she was a Five Nations Indian, and she was very shy and introverted and frustrated and, taken from her home, given up for adoption. Sure. And so the family was overbearing and worried about her dying and, because of what they experienced with their other son. And then she was picked on at school till finally she was picked on for about a year. And, she was a year at the school and she was picked on pretty consistently. And then she was beat up in the cafeteria and now stuck home for 6 weeks with the mother. So this was kind of the whole build up to when it really exploded. So it had that typical poltergeist family, environment with the little girl.
Sounds like she was the agent, or the target of the poltergeist, or the catalyst of the poltergeist.
Right. Well said, because we don't really know, but all those things we definitely do know that she was, was centered around her, her frustration and everything.
Prior to this event, or with anyone who had previously lived in the house, was there any paranormal activity?
No, none before and none after. It was completely focused on the family, and it actually began very slowly after Marcy was adopted. So it definitely coincided with Marcy being in the home. And I mean small things like, chair in the wrong place, that sort of thing.
Right.
More of simmering, except for the sounds, which began in 1971. But other than that, there was this other stuff that kind of Jerry, in fact, told a friend, he didn't know if he was going crazy or what, but, it started occurring to him something was off.
Since the little one was a member of the First Nations, did anyone bring in a shaman?
No, that was not done.
So the parents of the young girl, they themselves did not take any photographs. Was there any automatic writing that was being done by either Marcy or the parents? Were there any scrawlings on mirrors, on walls? Was there any raised skin on anybody in the house that would give a message?
Nothing of that nature. There was audio phenomena. Many people said the cat talked, which I don't believe the cat, quote unquote, talked, but there was audio phenomena surrounding that. And, people, of course, blame whatever's nearby. And,
sure.
The police officers complained the decorative swans on the porch were making guttural sounds, and there was footsteps and bangings on the wall, and entities that appeared in 3 different forms. One is like a black, shadowy, kind of cardboardy figure. Other is a set of 4 gauzy kind of entities that almost acted like in a pack. And then the billowing smoke, is as common in
sure.
Possession and things. And, these things on a few occasions through Marcy, one time a chair actually levitated up.
Okay, you and I have to take our news break. Please stand by, Bill. Great having you with us. Exonation, William J. Hall is our guest. He's the author of The World's Most Haunted House, and the website is www.worldsmosthauntedhouse.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news from here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. William J. Hall is our special guest. He's the author of The World's Most Haunted House, www.worldsmosthauntedhouse.com. Now, just getting back to the young girl, who I believe her name is Marcy?
Yes.
What what makes the people believe that she was possessed?
No, nobody believed that she
Okay.
was possessed. No, the smoke I was mentioning, the billowing smoke,
Right.
was a point where it filled the house, and I meant it was similar to what some people say is involved in some possession cases, or
But didn't you mention something about an exorcism?
Just that the initial priest that showed up said he was going to call and try to arrange for one, but that never happened because the story broke and went around the world, and then the Catholic Church really didn't want to get involved at that point.
I can understand that, especially since there was no one who was possessed. What would he exorcise?
Well, there was, yeah, they didn't even get to that part,
Yeah.
but that also is why the investigators and the priests didn't push farther on it, because they did believe that it was your poltergeist kind of thing. So that's a good point too.
Yeah.
That's another reason. But initially, they were making the call for it, but the Catholic Church says we don't have enough proof, and of course then it went public to such a degree that I doubt they would really want to get involved, even if there was that cause. But.
Well, Ed and Lorraine came down with a priest. What was the object of bringing the priest down with the Warrens?
Father Charbonneau did a number of investigations with them, and so they just brought him with them for house blessing, and he often accompanied them. So he was one of the priests that they worked with.
Was the family a religious family? Did they go to church? Were they Catholics?
Yeah, they were very religious, more of the old school,
Right.
based on fear rather than love.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were very religious. A lot of crosses in the place, and definitely a very religious family.
So what happened? How did everything return to normal? Who got rid of the entity or the entities?
Well, the investigators that came in, two from Duke University, and one was Boyce Beatty, who did the main investigation. The way it ended was they said, "Look, you got to get Marcy back to school, into a routine." And so she wasn't going to go back to the school where she was beat up. The parents weren't going to have any of that. And that was a rougher public school. So they ended up getting together with the original priest that was called, who was connected with the school. And they arranged for Marcy to go to the Catholic school there. And she got back to school, got in a routine, was much happier there, and things settled down. And that's, and that ended up resolving it.
So, in your opinion, as an investigator and as well as a professional magician, would this experience of the hauntings of this house be further evidence that hauntings have nothing to do with the paranormal at all, but it's manifested by a person, as Dr. Hans Holzer, who in my opinion was one of the greatest parapsychologists that ever walked on this planet, who's departed now, as he described a poltergeist, where it is manifested by a person and has nothing to do with the supernatural?
I can give you my opinion,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to argue if somebody has a different opinion, because,
Sure.
of course, it is just an opinion. I'm just happy that we're talking about it. Matter of fact, in the book, I put forth, a few of the theories that the investigators and witnesses would have. But the best explanation I heard was by Paulino, who was a 21-year-old seminarian at the Lindley Street case. He was a witness to it. And what changed his mind was he felt bone structure in the entity when he had kind of a pushing match with it while he was trying to protect Marcy behind him. And he felt like a bird-like bone structure. And it occurred to him that these things appeared more like living entities rather than quote unquote spirits or demons or
Right.
anything of that nature. And that's when he started doing research into the multiverse theories, theory of a parallel universe intersecting, kind of that door opening kind of thing where entities come out. And one of the kind of, I guess, indicators would be you have that family circumstance, you have some sort of usually water like a lake or a river. In the case of Lindley Street, there actually was an underground spring running under the house. So to me, the multiverse theory seemed to be, again, that could be completely off too. There's so much we don't know. And there's a lot of different multiverse theories. A lot of physicists do agree that there's multiple universes, but how many and what it means and, how it really plays out is a question. I kind of found it hard to say it was the RSPK, the psychokinesis approach. Only, a lot of this stuff happened when Marcy was not in the house, and we had entities involved.
Well,
and there were other houses that were affected with different kinds of entities in the neighborhood. So. And often these things even have UFO sightings. I mean, Lindley Street didn't. But so because of all this, to me, it seemed like it was the paranormal was much more linked than separate. If that makes any sense, as far as cryptids and UFOs.
Yeah, I think there's way too much going on here to be an actual paranormal event. For example, I've never, ever heard of a haunting with cryptids and UFOs before. And I've been doing this for 23 years. I've never heard of this.
Well, there's the Skinwalker case in Utah. That had all of that. And actually, there's one right in Connecticut that I'm investigating now that has it all. It even has the government moving into trying to figure out, what's going on. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to harness some sort of energy or something. I don't know. But it's had the UFOs and as well as the other things.
It seems that when you have too much going on, it takes away from the credibility of what it could be. Now, the fact that the little girl seems to be the agent or the reason for the poltergeist, in my opinion, would tend me to believe that this was strictly self-manifestation of a poltergeist. The fact that the young seminary touched or claims to have touched, once again, claims to have touched this entity. The fact that there's no photographic evidence whatsoever where you had so many members of the media and so many members of law enforcement there, that makes no sense to me. No sense at all. The fact that they would not allow the Warrens to set up cameras is a big red flag.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, it's definitely not a hoax. I mean, we have police reports and over 100 witnesses. I mean, even one of the police officers had silently went into Marcy's room and said to himself, if you're here, make yourself known. And there was a phenomena that happened as a result.
But who else saw this happen? I mean, when the officer went into the room, and he said to himself,
that was a self-test. But there was a house full of people that saw the billowing smoke. There was multiple people that saw the entities, and of course the phenomena happened in the house.
Yeah.
In fact, the police saw the phenomena happening in all three rooms at the same time. As well as seeing the phenomena happen while Marcy was not, in the house. There's all sorts of things happening. Of course, if it was today, we'd have all sorts of photos and videos and everything with, with cell phones. But
not even that. If this event is bringing so many people and it has so much activity, and you've got hundreds of witnesses or 100 witnesses, and still the law enforcement agency is there, you've got the media there, and still no one has any physical evidence, I should say photographic evidence? That makes no sense.
Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it if somebody somewhere has a photo, but certainly wasn't anything that was released in the papers. I mean, the news was there; it was on the news and everything of that nature. But yeah.
Once again, you were saying earlier that the superintendent believed that it was all faked, that the 10-year-old Marcy faked it all. Why would the superintendent say this if it wasn't true?
Well, the crowds had gotten to such an enormous number. I mean, the 3 guys even tried to burn the house down while the family was in it. I mean, they knew the crowds they had to close the road down. They had paddy wagons there. Traffic was backed up in all directions. It was using up police resources to boot. So it was a very dangerous situation. And not to mention making the superintendent look bad. But I mean, we have proof that we know there's plenty of witnesses for one, that there was this mandatory investigation of 8 hours on a reel-to-reel of police officers in the conference room after it all took place, in order to help the family, as well as Captain Fabrizi, who was one of the people who vocally announced it was a hoax, was one of the people who mandated the interviews, and was actually on the tape saying, when he found out that he needed somebody else on the street, and the officer was given an interview, and he found out he was given an interview, he says, no, don't disturb him, this is more important. And this was after it was announced it was a hoax. So I mean, they definitely knew, but the crowd was a very dangerous situation.
So if the crowd was a dangerous situation, why didn't they just move the family to an undisclosed location?
What happened was the next day they closed off the roads with barricades, and you had to show your license to get onto the street. So they did do that, but it still was very bad. Yeah, it was between the press and the people coming and the traffic. The superintendent, it was driving them crazy.
Well, sure, and this is why I say law enforcement crowd control dictates that if you've got a situation where a location is causing a lot of problems, it's not a crime scene, nobody's gotten killed, get the people out of there, put them into an undisclosed situation, diffuse the situation. That's basic law enforcement 101.
I mean, I don't know police protocol. I can just tell you what happened, back in '74. Yeah. I mean, they basically had police there, for crowd control, and then ended up barricading, the street. They had dogs and paddy wagons and things like that, but no, they didn't take the family and out of the situation or anything like that.
Was the young girl seen by a doctor?
Yeah, when they announced it was a hoax, they said the family agreed to take her to, and they took her to one visit to a psychiatrist as part of the, as part of that coming to an end. And then they went on the radio, of course, to dispute it and say that that was said for the crowds, and that was the last interview they gave.
If any, what type of phenomenon was caught on tape? Was there phenomenon caught on tape?
No, there was no videos or pictures in this case. There was just over 100 witnesses and about 16 police officers, firefighters. Again, the credibility and the number of the witnesses, I prefer any day over a photo or anything like that.
You see, that's where that's where I differ, because if you've got the photo, you've got tangible evidence. Here, so far, you've got hearsay. You have
tons of witnesses, enough witnesses to put away anybody in a court of law. I mean, the proof of Lindley Street is more proof than you have of most of the things you believe in. I mean,
But once again, looking
folks-
at it logically. Looking at it logically, putting aside the sensationalistic aspect of it, the fact that you've got the firemen there, you've got 16 cops there, you've got all the media coming down, something is getting sensationalized, and you've got all these people here. Don't tell me that a community like Bridgeport, Connecticut, doesn't have an investigation unit, and every investigator I know carries a camera with him. Back then, it would have been a film camera. Something just doesn't ring right.
Well, they announced it was a hoax, but they weren't interested in investigating it. They knew what the truth was.
What was the truth?
But there's 40 hours of interviews, Rob. I mean, you're talking about from what the public or the newspaper sees. I mean, I'm a magician. Trust me, I'm more skeptic than anybody would have been. But there's 40 hours of interviews on this.
So
I mean, you've got more than half of the police force on here.
You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by, Bill. William J. Hall is the author of The World's Most Haunted House. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. William Hall is our special guest. He's the author of The World's Most Haunted House, www.worldsmosthauntedhouse.com. Before we went to the break, you were just starting to tell me about 40 hours worth of tape. Now, these interviews, were they done after the case or during the case?
They were done after it was announced hoax. Boyce Beatty heard the story on the news, and he realized it sounded like a legitimate poltergeist case, and he had contacted the family and asked them if they wanted some help, and that's when he called Duke University, and he actually was trying to get Bill Roll, was supposed to be there, but he was in England at the time, and he sent Jerry Sulfan and Keith Harari down from Duke University, and the three of them did the interviews, and then I did about 10 hours or so of interviews myself with new witnesses, as well as some of the witnesses from 74 that are still with us, many, of course, of which are deceased now and luckily were taped, at the time in 74.
All right, so you've got the cops saying that this was faked on one side. On the other side, did they say publicly or to anybody that they believed that this was really a paranormal event?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of the police spoke up in the newspaper. It wasn't, you have to remember, it wasn't the police that said it was faked. It was the inspector and the captain and the superintendent.
Well, aren't they police?
Well, in other words, those were the ones who had to announce this thing as a hoax. The officers that were at the house, I mean, they saw the phenomena. The superintendent never stepped in the house. They gave to Inspector Clark. Inspector Clark, who was given the case late in the game, was told to shut it down, and the officers knew that, and the officers I spoke to weren't too happy about being sold out, so to speak. But of course, they understood with the crowds, and they had to get this thing shut down.
Yeah. Interesting, truly interesting. So what was the conclusion? It was little Marcy went to change schools, and did the family remain in that house? And was there any residue paranormal activity in the house after all this was over?
Not that we know of as far as residue. The Goodins tried to sell the house and couldn't. They really wanted to get out of town either way because There was a lot of vandalism and ridicule
Sure.
with Jerry at work as an aftermath of this. So regardless of phenomena ended or not, they wanted to get out of that area. But they couldn't sell the house, and the phenomena had ended, so they ended up painting the house and getting rid of the swans. So hopefully people couldn't find the house. Of course, instead it ended up being the newspaper that look, they changed the look of the house. But and then the Goodins just wouldn't. They gave that one last interview to say, I wish they, as Jerry said, I wish they blamed me and not Marcy, because they wanted to clear her name, and then that was the end of it.
Wow.
As far as they're talking, they wouldn't talk about it.
Hey, Bill, our time is up. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Exonation Bill, I should say William Hall, is our guest this hour. He's the author of The World's Most Haunted House. Happened in 1974 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Wow. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Are you a believer or are you a skeptic? Send me your mail. Xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break, as I said, as we continue here in the X Zone. Don't go away.